down, boy. You're annoying my dog.
Hello everyone and welcome to a new challenge video. I'm going to keep the rules real short this time. If I can ride a unit, and it is a ground unit, it is allowed, and its whole toolkit is allowed. And that is it, let's get right into it. Landfall, the first mission, is painfully slow. I only have the hero to work with. So what it just ends up being is I run in, I smack things around, summon wolves, use chain lightning, and then I just keep kiting and wait for my mana and health to restore and do it all over again. This level took so long for what should be a very simple mission otherwise. The only interesting bit happened right at the end. You have to defend the Taurens, the big cow people, against Centaur raiders. Normally you have a whole army backing you up, making it so that you can deal with it quite efficiently. But with only your hero, you have to rely on your healing totems to try keep the Taurens alive long enough to get through this ordeal. When I did the second mission, the Long March, I was not actually sure what challenge run campaign I was going to do. So I did the whole thing again using only Thrall. This time, I went in with a bit of a plan. I tried saving as many of the healing totems from the previous mission, and I would use them sparingly across the mission to keep the caravan alive and healthy, because losing a single Tauren early on could result in just losing the whole mission. Halfway through, I was given 3 troops that I could have used, which would have made the last section substantially easier to get through. But like I said before, I did not know what I was doing for this challenge run, so I just went with Thrall. And I think it's pretty damn cool how you can complete the first 2 missions of this campaign only using the hero and literally nothing else. 3 chapters in, and finally Cry of the Warsong is the first one where we can finally start building a base and an army. Considering I'm doing a challenge about Orc raiders, I find it really amusing that my first real strategy is to be a pacifist. I let Bromish handle destroying the first base, while I built a wall around his base. I have learned from other videos that this is a brilliant speedrun technique, because if you wall him into his base, he cannot actually attack any of the human bases surrounding you, which makes it a lot more peaceful to just build up a big army and tackle the final objective. I may have made a horrible mistake on my first attempt. I thought the attacks were triggered by Bromish running into the enemy base, and not exactly his troops. So these 2 spearmen just ran along to their death. I tried to stop them, but considering I have very fast units, it was quite pitiful how I could not kill them. Once I've got a big enough army, I can peacefully run them through the blue base and into the area of the final objective, where I can peacefully ask the Harpies to let me loan a Goblin Zeppelin from them. Chapter 4, The Spirits of Ashenvale, is probably the hardest chapter of the entire run. What makes it so tricky is that you do not start with a gold base, so you have very limited resources to begin with and make a situation that works for you. On my first attempt, I produced 2 Kodo riders real quick. The idea was that they could eat the first attack wave, greatly reducing the threat of it. The second attack is 3 Hippogriff riders, and they could not be dealt with efficiently by the Kodo beasts, meaning that I had created a very poor defensive option. So I had to reset the run and try something new. I realized that due to the Kodo beast's poor stat distribution of high health, low armor, and light armor, which arrows are more effective against, it would not be a good unit to use for this chapter due to the limited gold income. So to start with my second attempt, I sent all the peons to knock down the trees at the entrance of the base as quick as possible, while I used one to construct a single tower from the direction that the Hippogriff riders normally come from. This worked out incredibly well. Once the trees had fallen down, I took my Orc raiders and kited the Night Elf archers into the tower range, where they were swiftly defeated. The next step was to construct a proxy base near the gold mine. I unfortunately worked way too fast and efficient, so the first aerial wave came, and instead of attacking that protective tower in my main base, it instead decided to assault my proxy base. I took them down fairly well, but I had taken more damage than I would have liked, because in this challenge run, the orcs do not have any strong ways of healing themselves. After this really tight and restrictive beginning, the mission opens up entirely. There are so many different angles of approach that you can take, and I think it is an incredible mission for that fact alone. So the goal is to harvest 15,000 lumber, which is an incredible amount, more than you would ever really need. But to get there are tools on the way to help you out. There are sections on the map with massive amounts of tree coverage, allowing you to put a lot of peons there to harvest the lumber really quickly. There is a quest you can do to deal with some furbolgs on the left hand side of the map. But because the reward is goblin shredders, which are incredible units at removing trees and giving you lumber, they are not part of the core strategy of this challenge run, so I decided not to even bother recruiting them. The other, more plausible option is to destroy the trees of life around the map. On this mission only, a tree of life being destroyed gives you 3,000 lumber, which is a huge chunk of progress for the mission. There are two that are relatively easy to attack as they are poorly guarded. The remaining ones, however, are situated right in the center of massive night elf bases, and attacking them is quite a challenge. When I had recruited a strong enough army, I sent a whole bunch of orc raiders right into the base, ignoring everything except for the Tree of Life. I would snipe it down and get my 3,000 lumber and get out. And I wanted to end on a very cool note, so I stopped all my gatherers from harvesting lumber, and I sent my raiders to attack the second base. And it failed. It really failed. So much for my cool ending to this mission. So I just took all my workers, resumed their harvesting activities, and that was the level. I was not sure where to fit this clip into the timeline of this little chapter story, but I would just like to show how handling most of the attack waves went. I would take the orc raiders and pull them back into tower range, where they would be absolutely assassinated and murdered. And I did such a cool tactic here. I completely surrounded the night elves with a true hammer and anvil tactic. In chapter 5, The Hunt of the Shadows, you control majority of the map, just to immediately lose it to a massive night elf attack. I instantly take whatever troops are available in those side bases and move them to the main base, which helps me save a little on recruiting workers. To deal with the powerful night elf units, I construct a massive relay of towers in the center of the base. The idea was that I would be able to funnel attacks from both directions onto it. It worked really well for the first attack, but due to the general angles the enemy attacks from, they did not prove to be that useful for the remainder of the mission, although I'm still very glad that I did have them. I had to construct a second tower line to defend the second gold mine, because I wanted to double my gold income so I could clear out this mission as quick as possible. So as you can see, most attack waves were the towers just sniping down individual night elf units, while the orc raiders would go and wreck the ballistas due to their ability to outrange the towers. At the top end of the map, we get a massive upgrade that turns our Hulk boys into angry red Hulk boys. But to get there, we have to get through trees. I'm sure the intent was for people to recruit a demolisher to knock them down quickly, but due to not being allowed to use them for the challenge, I had to construct a wall mill there and then send workers to chop down the trees. In this top section you fight a lot of neutral creatures. The Kodo beast worked wonderfully here, as you could eat a whole bunch of them, reducing the fighting forces. Some of the more challenging ones involved the Pyromancer, who could call down a rain of fire and summon some skeletal archers with high damage. Luckily, you could pull the archers one at a time into your whole army to be either chopped to pieces or to be devoured by a Kodo. So you continue on to the final camp, which is a group of satyrs. They're pretty powerful, but once again splitting them apart allowed me to chop them into pieces. And now at last we get our upgrade. And it is quite frankly dog shit for the most part. The armor type of the Orc Raiders changes from medium to light armor, which, as we discussed in the previous chapter, makes them much more susceptible to the Elven Archer's attacks. And also, the chaos damage, it is a good improvement, allowing them to actually be competent fighters, but it makes them way worse at just destroying the enemy base itself. But it is honestly fine, because we have such a huge army, we literally trample through the first base. We have to tease attacking the second base to get Cenarius angry enough to come to us and fight on our ground where we have enough space to surround him. Because not doing so is going to result in a very, very horrible time. But with our chaos damage, we put Cenarius on his knees and we remove the Night Elf God. If I said before that the Spirits of Ashenvale was the hardest chapter of this run, well, I was blatantly lying to you, because where Wind Rider's Day is in fact the actual hardest run of this challenge. You wouldn't think it, however, with how I described the beginning of it. Simply put, I have come to the realization that towers are incredible at dealing with the early attack waves in this Orc campaign. So once again, I opted to build a fair amount of them to begin with to deal with any of the early aggression. On this map there are two side objectives to achieve. The one, which is a bit whatever because we get the Wyvern Riders, which we will not be using. The other, however, gives us access to a health fountain right next to our base, which is incredible because it covers the major Orc weakness of not being able to heal its troops without having a witch doctor. This is the mission that shows that the Orc Raiders are not particularly strong fighter units. They have incredible utility due to their ability to run down troops and throw nets, but they are not a good unit to make the bulk of your army out of, especially when you fight a horrible blue base that loves to utilize dwarven units, which if you've watched my Undead Challenge video, you will know gave me some of the worst hassle in all of that run, and they did it again in this one. A huge problem was that they had a level 9 Mountain King, and that guy was incredibly tanky. Almost any unit in the game will fall to my tower lineup, but he just shrugs off the blows like they are nothing, which makes him incredibly frustrating to take down and allows him to do so much before I can actually clear out the attack waves. The left base sends relatively pitiful attacks in comparison, so not much to say about them. So for the final push on the blue base, I had to be a bit creative because I could not fight a one-on-one fight fairly. So what I opted to do was transport over a whole bunch of peons, and I started to construct a massive tower line right in their base. Even with this massive advantage, and sniping down as many buildings as I could to stop the production, I was left with basically nothing. I ended up just using Thrall to slowly but surely finish off the few remaining buildings. The Oracle answers two questions. Is it possible to beat the campaign using only mounted units? No, because the second half of this mission involves using a Tauren. The other question it answers, and more importantly, is how many no-build missions are too many no-build missions, because this was the third one in 7 chapters, and honestly I think it was getting a bit too much. This mission is done in 2 halves. On the first half you control Thrall and his army, and on the second you control Kane and his Tauren army. On Thrall's side, you do get rid of most of your troops, greatly lowering your damage output, but due to how versatile Thrall is, being able to summon minions and using the nets of the raiders, you can get through any challenge, although it does sometimes take you using a bit of healing items or waiting patiently for your health to restore. On the second side you control Ken and his Tauren allies. To make it fair, I got rid of the basic Taurens and only used him. It was painfully slow using him without any items equipped. And on some sections I literally had to wait and do nothing for so long. Luckily, once you get past the roadblock, you can skip most of it right to the end, where you can sort of reunite with Thrall and use his damage output to destroy the big golems, allowing Thrall to come on that path and properly tackle everything with him. When you do that, you can clear out a very concentrated camp of crawl beasts, and if you do it the proper way and not the way with the trap, you get a very powerful item that makes your hero immune to spells, which is going to be very relevant very soon. The other item, which was also handy to a lesser extent, was the Talisman of Evasion, granting my hero a chance to evade attacks. I must be honest, by the time I got to Under the Burning Sky, I was genuinely feeling a bit fatigued from all the challenge runs I have been doing lately, so I thought I could either do this the legit way and use this really pathetic army to fight and slowly but surely break through the enemy bases, or I could just cheese the mission. And I will give full credit to Giant Grant Games, because it is a fantastic cheese that I found on his channel. By using the spell immunity item and the Talisman of Evasion, you can get through most of the orc bases without taking too much damage. In between them is a little section where you can rest up and restore your health by just patiently waiting. After that, you continue on to fighting Gromash, where you use an item on him to instantly nab him and you start running him back home. You can use the Spirit Wolves to split apart the enemies to make a clear path for yourself, but other than that, that was the mission. And I think it is a nice way to end after being bullied again and again by this game. Thank you everyone for making it through another one of my videos. If you liked it, please like, subscribe, and if you're feeling up to it, leave a kind comment down below. Or an unkind one, it doesn't really matter. It all helps at the end of the day. So yeah, nice seeing you again. Safiora out until the next one.